live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 8th episode of Trekporeal Adventures of, I guess, the 735, even though this is technically outside the 735 episodes of Trek from 1966 to 2005. But I feel this, after watching this episode, I would say maybe 736. So welcome to, right here we have the creator of Star Trek Voyager Season 8 audio drama, Jonathan J.K. How you doing? Thanks for joining me.
I'm very well, thank you.
So,
nice intro, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I used I don't know if you've noticed, but I used the Wrath of Khan Starfield, the rotating shot of the Starfield.
I did not notice that specific Starfield.
It's long enough. The thing is, the shot is long enough without any dialogue that I could use it and get away. I can use it and get away with it. So. And the Voyager, that was the end Voyager thing, like the very last theme that you hear when they're approaching Earth. So I felt that was appropriate for the stream. So
sure.
So yeah, sure. A lot of weird decisions that I make in my head. So, but yeah, how are you? How was your day so far?
I've just been just tidying the house, and then organizing with my editor for this particular audio drama that we're going to talk about. Just sharing some materials, behind the scenes stuff, you know.
Okay. So first thing I just want to ask you, and I actually wrote questions down because I'm new to interviewing, so I'm learning this myself. So you're learning how to be in a StreamYard stream. I'm learning how to interview in general. So
okay, sure.
So let's see. So I was just like, tell me a little bit about your background in science fiction.
Okay. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go ahead.
My background, I think my earliest backgrounds with Star Trek is watching Star Trek 3 or 2 with my dad. I'm not sure because I'm an 80s child, so my memory is a bit hazy on that. But it began in TV terms with TNG. I remember watching it on BBC once a week back in the day. No adverts, by the way. So actually, and now because I'm watching Star Trek again on Netflix, I've never watched Star Trek with adverts. And one time, I think I caught an American version, and the interruptions were like, "Oh my god, this is crazy." But anyway, that's an aside. Grew up on TNG. I didn't like DS9 at first because I thought with my 12-year-old brain or 14-year-old brain, it was fake because the uniforms turned me off, and didn't like it. Didn't watch it at first, but it was back to back with TNG, and then slowly I got into it, and I sort of hated myself for disliking it because it's actually one of my favorite Trek series. And then, of course, Voyager came out. And jumped into Voyager straight away. Didn't give it a second sort of opinion with regards to, oh, this isn't very good. Immediately, I didn't judge it on its appearance alone. I actually watched it. But out of all of the Trek, Voyager is actually my third favorite. But I'm sure you'll probably ask, why did you do an audio drama then about Voyager? And then watch the movies. Can't fault the movies that much. Without imposing a lot of headcanon in order to make those movies better. Yeah. And that's pretty much it, really, until 2009. Then we watched a couple of movies, and I didn't watch much of the TV episodes apart from Picard season 1, and then the first episode of season 2 of season 1. I don't want to be negative, but I didn't enjoy those 11 episodes. Watched some of Lower Deck, and I've just left it alone, basically. I watched Orville and For Mankind, which I consider sort of spiritual successors to Trek.
I do have to watch For All Mankind. I remember we were talking about it on Twitter. I do have a means to watch it. So it's basically an alternate history that starts in the 60s and then goes into the future. Kind of branches off.
It branches off almost, it branches off almost immediately. When just before, is it Apollo 11 lands on the moon? That's when it diverges, and the Russians get there first, which sets off a chain reaction of smaller events, which puts pressure on NASA. Which, in my mind, and probably when you watch it, you think, "Oh, yeah, if NASA had that sort of pressure put on them in real life, then they might have gone on the same trajectory." So it's a really sort of grounded what-if scenario. And every season, they take a 10-year or 8-year time jump, so it really moves itself forward.
So does it keep the same cast, or does it get brand new cast every season?
That's spoilers.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. And I think it's Ronald D. Moore that is the showrunner, the creator and showrunner of For All Mankind.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is
They're
he
planning supposedly 7 seasons.
okay? Has he been pretty consistent? Like I know he's a TNG writer. He worked on DS9, and then he became he went into Battlestar Galactica 2004. I'm just like has his writing been really consistently good up to this point from based on what you're saying about For All Mankind? Yeah, it sounds like it is.
I think so, because you've got to ground it to elements in our reality. There are some criticisms of season 2 with regards to some character drama stuff, but it didn't really bother me.
Okay,
So
I see.
yeah, you just have
All
to get a
right.
wider diversity of opinions as to what's going on without obviously getting spoilers.
Oh yeah, of course.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's what I'm trying to do here. I want to bring in different ideas, whether people agree or disagree with me. That's the point. I don't get offended if somebody feels a different way, because I've had, I mean, on my Orville streams, I've had people that didn't like the episodes because sometimes they felt they were some of the political ideas or the Seth MacFarlane's political ideas were a little too on the nose. But that's something I've never been too political myself, so something I can easily brush over my shoulder, unless it's terrible writing. If it's terrible writing, then I'm going to riot. Oh, I should have said
Okay.
that. That's not correct. That's blatantly incorrect. So. But yeah, you actually answered my second question. I was going to be like, how did you find Star Trek? And you basically said, because you were an 80s child, Star Trek The Next Generation. I remember actually that Star Trek The Next Generation was the first thing I've ever seen that was Star Trek. So when my folks, one time, I think I was 6 or 7 years old, and we had cable on, I think it was HBO, and HBO was playing Star Trek 5, the great Star Trek 5, Final Frontier. I took a liking because I was really young. I took a liking to Spock because he had the pointed ears and he had those rocket boots that allowed him to float up in the air. And I don't know if it's because as a kid I was a big Nintendo fan. I'm a big Legend of Zelda fan. I'm actually, one of my current projects right now is a Legend of Zelda project. But I've been a big fan of like Link and that type of and those characters. And so seeing Spock, another character with pointed ears, just kind of endeared me to him as a little kid. So.
Okay.
And then it was just funny saying just the dynamic of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. That just I know people hate the movie. I actually loved it when I first saw it. I still have a deep place in my heart for it, even though it's
You mean Star Trek 5? You mean
Star Trek 5, Final Frontier.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good in Star Trek 5. It tried, and a lot of people blame William Shatner for that. But when you get into a deeper dive into the behind the scenes production values, you realize that the studio wanted Star Trek 4, but in 5, and he wanted something that was a bit more gritty and more meaning and sort of going to service the motion picture, if I can make that analogy or that direct comparison.
And they
couldn't afford fundamental questions.
Yeah, and they couldn't afford ILM. that was another issue. They went with some cheaper company, and it shows. So so I'm gonna going into talking about Star Trek. What was the most appealing aspect of Star Trek? What made you want to keep watching Star Trek? Like what was it? The characters? Was it how they treated each other? Is it the science fiction setting? Is it the optimistic future? What holds close and dear to you?
I mean, when I was a teenager, I didn't really care for much other than the ships. And I did like the characters, but not to the nuanced level of myself now, who's 41, and who can watch them again and again on Netflix and really get into the nuance of the characters now and see all the callbacks and references to, let's say, with DS9, the Way of the Warrior. I mean, actually, when I was a teenager, Way of the Warrior, I realized, oh, this is like a repeat of Emissary. And that was probably one of my earliest understandings of subtext within Star Trek.
It did feel like it did feel like a pilot. It felt like a new beginning. Season 4. I mean, you had Cisco was bald. Cisco shaved his head. He had the cool stash, like the badass that he is, Avery Brooks. But then he had Worf. Then they included Worf. It just felt like because they never dealt with the Klingons really before Way of the Warrior, barely. So, and then with the Dominion thing going on, it felt like they were putting a pause on the Dominion stuff and having the Klingons come in because of the Dominion stuff. So I liked it. It was cool. They upgrade DS9, gave them weapons. So it was a nice little, ship fleet versus space station battle, which you only really see twice. You see that, and then you see it in Call to Arms when the Dominion and Cardassian Alliance invade and take the station. I don't think you ever really see the station at battle stations after that. I don't think.
No. I do remember though, as a child, that there was something there entertaining enough for my teenage brain to want to keep watching, but I couldn't express it to you. If we went back in time and we talked about it, I wouldn't be able to, as a teenager, say why I really liked it, other than the ships, the uniforms, and my dad is ex-military, so some of that is kind of appealing to me. The rigidity of the social structure, but also the professionalism. I mean, they didn't argue with each other, and that's one of the things I picked up on. But other than that, I was just a kid watching ships go pew pew pew.
Yeah, somebody reminded some guy named Alex that chain of command is important, and you can't just speak out of turn, and you can't talk back to a captain, and a captain can't just take it either. So, looking at you, Captain Pike. Sorry, I watched some of Strange New Worlds. That's why I watched the first 5 episodes, and then I kind of stopped.
Oh, I did the 10 actually. I forgot to mention I did the 10 episodes.
Oh, you did? I kept tabs. I know what the episode 10 was about, and I was like, wow, not even Enterprise went that far to have them see the Romulans before Balance of Terror. Like they completely flipped Balance of Terror. And like, why would you flip that episode? That's like the most important Star Trek episode. The fact that Star Trek Enterprise kept tried to keep true to that tells you something, because I was not a fan of Enterprise when it first came out, because I was not a fan of prequels back then. I mean, I saw the Star Wars movies, and I mean, now I like the prequels, but back then when I was a kid, they were just so different. And I felt the same. Like, why would you make a series prior to the original series? Like, why would you make this? But then my friend got my friend got the DVDs, and I watched, and I realized it gets really good by the end of season 2. And then season 3 and 4 were just fantastic.
At the time, I was kind of annoyed by Enterprise being a prequel, because I thought, oh, prequel again. Star Wars does prequels, and they weren't very good. I want to see what happens after the Dominion War. And I think a lot of people are still asking what happened after the Dominion War. And then obviously Picard teases. They say that Picard will tease some of it in season 3, and it's like, okay, but it'll just be what's less than a footnote. Like, I don't know, but it doesn't seem actually that important. And to me, I think there's something to get your teeth in with regards to that particular timeline, which my audio drama, just not really spoiling it, will actually get into. So I'm going to answer my own questions.
Okay, cool. So I was going to ask, so you said Voyager was your 3rd favorite show. I'm curious, what's your first 2 favorite shows then?
DS9 and TNG.
Okay. Also, TOS is down in the low end. Okay.
That's because as a child, it was barely on. And you got to consider it was like 10, 15 years after it originally aired, and we're in the UK at the time. Yeah. I don't know if you can tell I'm from the UK. But now I'm actually I'm actually doing a watch through with my partner for the very first time, and we've just started season 3. We just watched Spock's Brain, which isn't that bad. I thought it was just like okay, it's just cheesy, but now we're watching it.
Spock's Brain was the 2nd episode I ever owned. So I used to buy when I was a kid. I was a kid in the 90s. I had the blue covered Star Trek VHSs. So they were the blue boxes with the white, the white and with the white font with the red borders. That was what I owned. And Space Seed and Spock's Brain I got. Those were the first 2 episodes I ever owned. First 2 Star Trek episodes I ever owned on VHS. And Spock's Brain has a special place in my heart.
Okay.
Especially, I think I was 11 or 12 when I first saw those. So, what is man? What is woman? No, the female, your kind. Your words say nothing. Don't you have a mate? A companion. It's that episode was great. I loved it.
I'm not somebody who wants to rate TOS alongside the more in between series. You know, that 18-year run of TNG, DS9, and Voy. I kind of put it in a separate place because it's so different, and I wouldn't rate it alongside those other ones. It's just special in its own way.
Oh, okay. I definitely see where
Okay.
you're at. Like if I had to say it, TOS is just my favorite because it's to me it's Star Trek, and plus it's I just loved as a kid in the 90s. I love the cheesy lighting, like the colorful lighting mates, because I played a lot of Nintendo games. I'm used to like Mario and Zelda games are very colorful in their artistic styles. But like I'm sure you notice like all the different colored lighting and throughout the ship, and then the music is so dramatic because it was 60s. It was 60s production values. 60s production values had like really dramatic music. Every show, westerns, all the shows in the 60s had that. So, and I thought it was cool. But then I see like the 90s shows like TNG and stuff, and they were just totally different, like totally different production values, totally different ideas and storytelling. And it took me those shows actually took a while for it to grow on me, but I eventually, what really captured me shortly after owning the first two episodes of the original series, Voyager was on every Wednesday night here in the States on UPN, United Paramount Network. And because I was getting into Star Trek, the 30th anniversary hit like about the fall before. I started seeing more and more stuff. I saw Star Trek First Contact in the theater. That was my first Star Trek movie that I saw in the theater. I think I was right on my 12th birthday. So I saw the Borg for the first time. I had no idea who they were, but they looked freaking awesome. So, and so months later, I'm watching Channel 50 trying to find, episodes of the original series. And there's a show called Star Trek Voyager. And then I see more Borg. I'm like, I remember them. So I watched, I ended up watching Scorpion Part 1 without realizing what a cliffhanger was. I didn't know what a cliffhanger was. So I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next week on Part 2. And they showed a different episode. I'm like, what the hell? So, but yeah, it was Scorpion that kept me watching, that got me into Voyager. So I actually started with season 3. And then when the DVDs came out, I finally watched seasons 1 and 2. So the only Seska episode I saw was Worst Case Scenario and Basics Part 2, because I didn't see any of the episodes from seasons 1 and 2. So,
okay.
But that's kind of the genesis of how I got into Voyager. And then after that, I just watched Voyager every week, every season. 7 of 9 came in, and you had, and then it just, I was like, are they ever going to get home? For a second, there was a point where I didn't think they were going to get home in season 7. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was making the comparison to the show Gilligan's Island, because Gilligan's Island got canceled and they never made it off the island. They never got back to civilization. So I always thought that maybe Voyager would still be in the Delta Quadrant, that they would continue it with movies. Because I thought, because TNG movies were coming out, I thought every show was going to get its own movie series. That's how much of a sweet summer child I was back then. Like, I thought Deep Space Nine was going to be getting their own movies. I thought Voyager was going to be getting their own movies. Nope, didn't happen. So
it nearly did. I know we still haven't talked about the audio drama yet, but there was going to be, after Nemesis, a crossover movie with DS9 and Voyager.
Yeah, I heard Brent Spiner was one of the writers or something.
He got his friend, the guy who wrote Logan. He was going to write it with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mangold, I know, directed Logan. I don't know if he wrote it, though. I'm assuming that's not him.
I don't think it was James Mangold. My memory's hazy. I'd need to look it up again. But anyway.
Well, yeah. So, I'm just curious. Voyager, since you wrote season 8, what drove you to write season 8? Was it because of the way the season set, way Endgame turned out, or the way Voyager ended, kind of, without really having an extra episode for debrief, a true finale?
When I watched it for the first time, Endgame, I was 21 at the time, and it just ended. I didn't even look at the clock, because I just thought, well, this is a really good episode and we'll get a wrap up at the end. And then it just ended, and I thought, what? There's got to be another episode. So I checked the TV listing and there was nothing on the schedule. I was like, that's the last episode? You spent all this time and you just see the Earth and you don't get anything. And I guess the bit at the future, at the front of the episode, that was our sort of debrief, as you put it. I was like, no, this can't be it. And so I guess for 20 years, I've always been slightly annoyed by it, but I never really took it upon myself to want to continue writing that story. But then Star Trek Picard came out. I was very upset. I think after the first 10 seconds, once the Enterprise D dream finished, I was like, this. I mean, I never watched Discovery, so I didn't know what I was getting in for, and I don't want to voice my negativity too much here, but I was just ultimately very disappointed with Picard, the way it was written and the way it handled the canon. And I actually spoke to the writer of Picard. What's his name? Remember his name?
Not Akiva Goldsman.
No, not Akiva. The other one, the one who was the showrunner.
Michael Chabon.
Right. Known endearingly as Michael Chabong, because he must have smoked a massive couple of reefers when he went through the show notes on those episodes.
I heard he's a deadhead. He's a deadhead, so I mean, that comes with.
But someone said to me, he's a sci-fi writer. So I looked him up, and I thought, if since this is my introduction to his science fiction his ability, I was very like, well, I'm not buying your books. This, what you've done. Supposedly, you're a fan. They all say they're a fan, and yet then they want to inject themselves into it. And I hope because you've listened to it, you don't sort of get. Then again, you don't know who I am, but there's not as many. There's my personality. I hope is not in the episode that you've listened to or in any of the episodes. I'm trying to stay true to the characters. So I said to him on Twitter and on Instagram, I said, I'm very disappointed and I don't understand why you've written the shows like this, and I'm going to write my own. So he just said, well, good luck to you. I was like, fair enough. So he's actually the inspiration, two-part inspiration to writing the audio drama. One is that Endgame didn't satisfy me and a lot of other people. And then two, Michael Chabong didn't satisfy me either. So I took that negative, his output, and tried to turn it into a positive. And I just thought, right, I'm going to write my own, and I want to do better than him at least.
Oh, you did.
Here we are. Here we are. Thank you.
Like I felt like I was watching, a true continuation of, the 24th century of Voyager, and right. I was really happy with what I got. I do have a question. Are you familiar with the relaunch of the Voyager books that I'll take that take off right after Endgame? Are you familiar with those at all?
Yes, I've bought the two Christie Golden books, and I found those disappointing. And I bought them before I started writing my Star Trek Voyager. And the reason why I was disappointed is because none of the characters besides B'Elanna actually gets to do anything. And then they add the spoilers, but they actually bring in Commander Data and Captain Picard. And they don't serve any story function. I don't remember, but okay. And they don't do anything with any of the characters. And then they just finished Endgame. The book literally picks up where Endgame finishes as well. So this is like a parallel to For All Mankind. We've got this alternate history going on where I need to diverge from Christie Golden's books. And it's another Borg queen that's sort of coming up on Earth. And I was just like, okay. You had a comment on Twitter. Someone said they're wonderful. And I don't, apart from B'Elanna's storyline, there's nothing else that is particularly memorable about those two books, sadly. And I didn't get that sense of disappointment until I started reading the second book. And I was like, oh, this is more Borg stuff, and I'm just done with the Borg. I'm done with it.
Funny. I read those. Those are the only two I read. I've read Homecoming and On the Farther, or was it The Farther Shore? I read those, and I don't even remember what they're about. I don't even remember them. I read them a couple years ago. Don't remember them. Just kind of went out. But you know who did take over? I mean, I'm sure you of course you know. Kirsten Beyer took over. I think the series. I think Christie Golden wrote like the first 3 or 4, and then Kirsten Beyer took over. Wow, Kirsten Beyer probably wrote, in my opinion, the single worst Star Trek episode I've ever seen. And it's called Stardust City Rag. And when Icheb was coming up in your episode, I couldn't help but think about Stardust City fucking rag. Excuse my language. Seeing him get murdered, or seeing him get his eye ripped out, and then Seven of Nine kills him. Mercy kills him. Euthanized, or Mercy kills him. I was like, what is this? Why? I'm like, why? I did finish Picard. I finished the whole season, but oh my God, that I felt awful after seeing that. It was terrible.
There's a reason why Jerry Taylor rejected Kirsten Beyer as a writer on Voyager.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Kirsten Beyer did some pitches, and Jerry Taylor rejected everything. And I don't understand how she became the book writer of the Voyager continuation series. But a few other people have criticized those books. But again, I don't want to be too negative. So
I haven't read. I can't comment on the quality of her of the later Voyager novels. But that episode, dude, oh Jesus. And I'll be honest, I'm critical of Jerry Taylor. I mean, she ran TNG season 7, and season 7 was not. I mean, not as bad as season 1.
Okay,
it's probably my second least favorite, even after season 2, because season 2 had Q, Who, and Measure of a Man. So season 7, what did season 7 have? They had All Good Things as a good episode, or if you consider Beverly having sex with her grandmother's boyfriend ghost dude,
that is an amazing episode. It is amazing. Old ladies taking out synthetic life forms and blind men. It's amazing with electric hands. And the candle. That episode has been memed so much. It comes from a place of love. So I can't fault that episode at all. And the Scottish planet. It's amazing. I need to write a Welsh planet in my audio drama.
Yeah, and then they had the Native Americans on the Cardassian decentralized. I'm like, oh my god,
well,
like the worst.
Well, maybe I'm biased, but some of those episodes actually feed into the Voyager audio drama, so I can't be critical of those.
That's fine. No, that's fine. I mean, you've done some lot of great references. Like you did talk about the Cardassian demilitarized zone. You did talk about, hey. You talked about TOS. You talked about Voyage Home when they're going. So yes. I'm assuming at the end of this episode, they go through a similar type of ceremony.
So we're talking about the audio drama now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm all over the place. I didn't really plan this out, but now that I'm thinking about it, when at the end of the first episode, when they're going through the ceremony, going down, they're in Code Blue. They're going down to Earth by San Francisco. I'm assuming it's kind of mirroring what we actually saw in Endgame, in the beginning of Endgame, but in the alternate reality, in the reality where Voyager didn't get home for was another 13 for 13 years, and this is the 10th anniversary, and so we're seeing like archived footage in the beginning of the episode when they originally got home.
Yes, that's
with the fireworks and all that.
Yes, that's the reference. I'm trying to tie that up and say this is when they did it. That's when they flew down, and it's sort of somewhat similar with how they go into obviously low Earth orbit and then through the Golden Gate Bridge, and Tom Paris is playing it loose with just being a little bit daring, probably for one of the last times in his life, till fatherhood hits him. But yes. That's I'm trying to get you to visualize that and then tie that off, and then that's done, which then links into the Delta dinner.
Yeah, I really, there's another thing I really appreciate you talking about, like all the food that they've learned about from Neelix and from going to the plants. Now, I'm trying to remember correctly, but like I remember in Voyager they had replicator rations, so they couldn't really like use the replicators that much. So they always went to various planets to gather like food supplies, or at least Neelix would go down to the planets with permission to get food supplies. I'm curious, like the only thing I could think of right now is the cheese that Neelix made that caused the episode Microcosm, where those giant bacterias come and start attacking people from season 3.
Take that cheese to the sick bay.
Take that cheese to sick. I remember correctly, like all of Neelix's cooking was kind of like a joke. I always thought like people didn't really care for his cooking.
If you go to Memory Alpha, which I've leaned on heavily for a lot of this, And I got to say up front that everything that happens in the audio drama will not contradict canon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to stay very rigid because a lot of writers say you can't stick to canon. And that's another source of inspiration, the sort of guiding light to say, no, I'm going to stick to canon. And I think it's possible. But then again, I have the luxury of time on my side to just write whatever I want. But there is a memory alpha list of food that Voyager picks up. And so in the next episode, I think, or it's episode 3, I actually name drop some of the food. It's for a particular dinner scene in the mess hall. Yeah, but that food is a through line throughout the entire episode, because as soon as Janeway, let's back up a bit. When the episode ends in Endgame, my episode picks up like 20 seconds after that episode, because Red Alert has gone down and she's obviously recuperating from that lump in her throat. But then she does a quick tour of the ship and she gets to Chell, and Chell gets a lot of time in the very first episode, and it's like, why is Chell here? You're expecting probably something else, and you've got this blue Bolian in charge of the ship. And
that was another thing I was really appreciative of, because I forgot that he was actually in another episode. The only episode I thought he was only in Learning Curve, and I thought that was it, but he was actually in another episode in season 7.
He was in the one where the Maquis are getting taken out by Tuvok.
Oh, that's right.
Same actor as well. Same actor.
Yeah, that's one thing I like. I mean, I always appreciate when they can get like the original actors to come back. I know a lot of the times, because of the nature of show business, that they can't. Like for instance, the character Bach, Damon Bach from TNG, he was in season 1 and he was also in season 7, but they couldn't get Frank Corsentino back, so they got another actor. I don't even remember his name, but yeah, as a nerd, I appreciate when they try to be as consistent as they can. And that's one thing I like about, like, if you ever seen the Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, they try to be as consistent there too. Oh, those, if you like a good character study, those two shows are great character studies. Great character studies.
It'd have to be put at the bottom of the list. I haven't got time to watch so much.
I'm helping you sift through all I'm helping you sift through the crap like that. That's like, it's my favorite show right now. It's
okay. I've watched the pilot of Breaking Bad, and that's it. That's it.
Watch
that was only a couple of months ago.
Watch episode 2. Way episode. That's why I kept watching it. So, and it just keeps getting crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier. So
let me continue with the food and
go ahead.
So the idea of the food is obviously to bring people together, and culturally, that's what food is supposed to do. And so in the Voyager episode, you start off with Chell. You set it up with Chell. He's creating a Delta dinner, trying to make it about himself, until obviously the ending. And if you have listened to it, okay. If you haven't, then you just have to find out what happens at the end. But it's supposed to bring you all together. You get invested in the characters. Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, sure.
Sorry about that. My brother interrupted me. The food part I really appreciate it, because that's been glossed over like crazy. So by
the way, what disappointed me with the food is because I live in Asia.
Yeah.
A lot of the food that, now that I live here and I see what they sell in the street markets here, a lot of that food that you see in Voyager actually comes from probably the Chinatown near Hollywood Studios, because we've got all the same fruit. We've got all the same alien fruit. It's really strange.
Really?
But obviously, yeah, but 30 years ago or 20 years ago when Voyager was on, we didn't have this interconnected worldwide economy as such. So you wouldn't have got dragon fruit and pomelos and whatever. And they managed to get them and stick them in the background. Rather than make their own fruit, they've actually got real fruit there. It's
really?
So silly.
So they took exotic fruit and made it alien.
From China, yeah.
Wow.
So weird.
Yeah. That is. I did not know that.
Voyager for me.
I did not know that. Wow, that's cool. Yeah. Dragon fruit. Yeah. It's because of between obviously the world economy, the internet, social media, everybody's sharing everything. I mean, nothing is the level of exoticism is kind of went down, because we're all connected. Like I can easily talk to you. You're all way across the Pacific from me. So and half of the country, half the U.S. too. So, but yeah, I was just so going before even going any further into the audio drama. What other plot points from Voyager did you feel should be that? Because I know one thing Voyager didn't do as well as like Deep Space Nine was like follow up on episodes, especially episodes where important thing or something like really profound something really profound happens.
Right.
Like for instance, two Vix, excuse me. But do you follow up like on any plot points that you felt were not really handled or followed up on well in Voyager? Like
yes.
another example, the Equinox crew. How are they adjusting to Voyager? Because we never see them again after Equinox Part 2.
Yeah, they're not in this. They get a mention in episode 2, and that's it. I've not continued with Equinox, but after episode 3, because episodes 1, 2, and 3 are sort of getting the crew off the ship, and we say goodbye to Voyager for the time being, and then 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I'm currently writing 6 and 7 together. They are individual episodes, and I'm trying to theme them, stylize them in it as a typical Star Trek episode, where the episode is about a certain character. So episode 4 is about the Doctor, episode 5 is about Tom Paris and B'Elanna, episode 6 is about Chakotay, and episode 7 is about Harry Kim. And slowly there is over the course there's some B-side stories that are getting developed, and I'm sort of putting them on the boil, so to speak, and they'll come out after that, because episode 8 will begin the Janeway story. It'll start her story because I've moved her out of the way as well. But there's an episode that I really like, and it made me cry. Back then it didn't make me cry, but because I'm writing for Chakotay, it made me cry now. And I guess that's really lame, sorry. But some Voyager episodes have made me cry because this sounds really pretentious, but because of how much I'm investing in the characters, I go back to that episode and I think, wow, if what I write, if I consider it canon, then I just get a little bit more emotional because I'm tying those episodes up. But basically, in episode 6, it's a Chakotay episode, and we revisit the storyline where he meets the people who give him the tattoo. Not the give him the tattoo, the ones who meet the inheritors. If you go back to when these aliens landed on Earth, and it begins their cultural sort of attachment to the planet. Do you remember this one? And he has to get naked.
That's the episode.
Has to get naked.
That's the episode Tattoo, right, from season 2?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm picking up some of that, but not in a sense that he has to explain everything, but somebody gives him an impetus to act on what he was given as a gift. And I want to be really vague because I haven't published the episode yet.
Oh yeah, no, you don't. Yeah, don't. Yeah, yeah.
But if you've ever watched Dumbo the movie, you know Dumbo, he has just misery piled on him until right at the very end when he gets to fly, and so that's what I'm aiming for with Chakotay. Although it's not going to be as miserable, but there's just this pace I'm going for, which is going to parallel Dumbo the movie or the Dumbo storyline. Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. I like Dumbo the movie.
I like
the old one, the good one.
Yeah, the old one. I haven't seen the new one. So for Chakotay, that's something I'm going to pick up on, and there's some other things as well, which people in the Discord, Patreon Discord, know that I'm going to write about. So there's other things that sort of interfere with Chakotay's storyline or his through line throughout this. The other one I want to pick up on is B'Elanna's sort of self-identity, which has always been questioned in the series, a little bit repeated, and they never really went beyond a certain point. They sort of gave her a reset every season.
I agree.
When it came to her episode. So I want to take her in a different direction, which will parallel Christy Golden's storyline. So because I said that's one of the good things about that book is B'Elanna's storyline. So my idea is very similar to hers in that regard. And then what I want to focus on is the Dominion War, or the aftermath of the Dominion War. And Icheb is going to Starfleet Academy. Episode 5, I think he arrives. Episode 6, he gets his first lesson. And he's going to meet... This is not a spoiler because I hope to get it out by the end of this month. But you know, Andrea, do you remember Angela Brand, the lady who disciplined Nick Locano in the episode, the TNG episode, where they
She was the admiral,
tried to,
right?
yeah, First Duty, I think it's called. Yeah, she's
Oh
the
yeah,
superintendent of Starfleet Academy.
yeah.
In the beta canon, which I also try to follow as well, she left, and she left. I think sometime when Admiral Layton tried to take over the Earth in
Deep
DS9
Space Nine.
season 4. So you can see it's already linking in Voyager, DS9, and TNG together. But in the beta canon, they say she comes back. And I've basically said, I agree with that. So she comes back and she's giving a class and she meets Icheb for the first time in the class. And I'm using Icheb as sort of the Luke Skywalker, where he's your character into the world of Star Wars. Icheb is our way into Starfleet Academy and to pick up some of the political machinations of what's happened in the Alpha Quadrant while Voyager has been away. So he's our entry back into this world.
Yeah.
Those are some examples.
I could see Icheb now. You're the writer. You don't have to confirm what I'm saying, but I can see Icheb, kind of, being taken advantage of by other Starfleet cadets. Like he wants to make friends because it was really just him and Naomi Wildman on Voyager. So he doesn't have a whole lot of interaction with a whole lot of people his own age, besides obviously the Borg cell that he was part of, the Borg children, but they left. The one I remember died right away. And then the other three, yes. I think there were 3 more of them. They went back to their families in the Delta Quadrant. So that left Icheb alone because Icheb, if I remember correctly, his parents sent him to infect the Borg. And it was one of those episodes where it was like not cool. I mean, even though the Borg were, destructive force, it was still not a moral thing to do. And that's one thing I loved about Trek. And I'll be honest, the Orville did this with the Kaylon in episode 9. I don't want to spoil it, but they did something similar where they had the ability to destroy, and they chose not to do it, even though it was an existential threat. The only issue I had with the episode, though, was that I felt it concluded it too quickly. I felt it should have been drawn out a little bit more. And then that weapon, that super weapon, just came out of nowhere, in my opinion. But other than I loved what I saw. It was a great overall episode.
I think you're right. Icheb doesn't have the experience of dealing with other people his own age, and so that is actually part of his story. But we get to see. It just seems logical. I don't think you can ignore it. And considering that you've said it, and I've already written it that way, it just seems entirely plausible. But that's good. That's what could happen.
Yeah, that's just from me. I know you have probably. I mean, your vision might be totally different, but that's just a speculation on my part. So, but I mean, so is Icheb going to be? Are you going to treat Icheb like a main character? Like even though he was kind of like he was like a secondary, he was like a recurring character. He wasn't part of the main cast. Are you going to treat him like he's part of the main cast, where he's going to get like his own episode?
At the moment, he hasn't. So again, this is not spoilers, but when you get into the other episodes after episode 3, what happens is that I use the pre-titles sequence as an avenue to sort of throw this other story in, and then after the titles, it's another story, and it might be broken up by one scene from another character's point of view. So episode 5, for example, starts with Starfleet Academy, but it's with Icheb's classmates, not with Icheb. And then the story starts, and it's Tom and B'Elanna. And then just to break that up, you go somewhere else, and you meet someone else very quickly, and then we get back into Tom and B'Elanna. So it's kind of
like an A plot, B plot deal.
It's just 2 scenes basically to break it up. But that Starfleet Academy scene, which is before the titles, happens again in episode 6, where now Icheb is with those classmates, and it's a different lecturer. So that does continue, and I'm trying to do that to service Icheb, because I haven't given him, or I won't give him, a full episode. But he is a main cast member as far as I'm concerned, but he doesn't have a dedicated episode. And maybe 7 doesn't in the beginning either. As I said, it's Tom and B'Elanna. They share it, Chakotay and Harry Kim. Tuvok, actually, I'm not planning to give him a distinct episode. Maybe just a couple of scenes here and there, because writing for a Vulcan is very, well, if I can't do it, well, no, that's the wrong way to put it. If Star Trek new Trek writers can't do it, which I don't think they did in episode 4 or 5, Spock Amok or whatever it's called, I think a Vulcan is better suited to servicing other characters, and that's where I want to take Tuvok. Now, that there's a degree of importance inside to how much he services, and he is very important because it's Tuvok, of course. It's not Vorik, but he doesn't get his own dedicated episode. I just don't know how to write an emotionless person.
I loved how you. Speaking of Vorik, I loved how you had Vorik, and I loved how you included Vorik in this. I was like, wow, maybe Jerry Taylor was behind this production too.
Oh,
no,
is he in episode
because
1?
Alexander Enberg is Jerry Taylor's son. So when she left Voyager, because she was showrunner for the first 3 seasons, when she left, he was gone too. They never brought him back. So I did see Alexander Enberg. He was at the Las Vegas convention last August actually. So
okay, but is Vorik in episode 1? I don't remember. I'd have to read it again.
Episode 1 of season 8. Yeah. Well, he's mentioned. He was present.
Oh, okay.
Tuvok were present during.
He has a little bit. He has a little bit to do in episode 2 and 3. I didn't know I put him in episode 1.
And what's funny is I didn't realize it, but his actor also played a different Vulcan in the TNG episode Lower Decks.
Well, funny you should say that, because you can't. A different writer created that character, so they were going to do a transfer of that character to Voyager, but they couldn't because they didn't want to pay the Writers Guild royalties.
And I heard it's the same reason for Nick Locarno becoming Tom Paris, because they were going to originally use Nick Locarno.
Yes, partly, but they said he's also irredeemable. So, yeah. But the beta canon
is irredeemable. I guess he is, because he made Wesley and the rest of them cover it up. So yeah, I guess I can see where you're coming from.
Okay, they say he is, but let me just take this one step at a time. So Vorik and Torek, or whatever their names are, in the books, they're supposed to be twin brothers. So as far as I'm concerned, I didn't know that. That's what they are, twin brothers. With regard to Nick Locarno, they say he's irredeemable, but I always felt that no, he isn't, because if you believe in the whole Starfleet optimism, then there's something about him that could reverse that sort of irredeemableness about him. And
yeah, I don't believe in. I agree. I don't believe that people can be. I mean, part of the human condition is we all fuck up. We all make mistakes. We might do monstrous things. I think there's always a way that people can come back, and that we have to be open. We have to be. The thing is, as humans, we have to, and it's hard for especially the nature of the action that's been done. But it's just something that we have to work on. We have to fight our reaction, or our reaction to something bad by anger and hatred, and try to kind of, like they say, evolve try to be more evolved in how we view things in our worldviews. And that's one of the things I really found appealing about Trek, was that it touched me like a lot of episodes really touched me emotionally. Like there was one episode in particular, it was DS9. This was the final episode of Core, where he's on the Klingon ship with Martok, and we find out that he truly wronged Martok as a kid. Like Martok wanted to be in the military, and Core wouldn't accept him because he wasn't of a higher, noble class. And so it got to a point where Core he has like Klingon dementia, and he doesn't remember things. And so there was a point where they were laughing at Core because of his dementia and the fact that they were laughing at his dementia, Core, Martok, and the rest of them. And then a little bit later, the next scene, he's like, I laughed. He tells Worf, I think it's Worf. He tells Worf, I laughed at Core, and you know what happened? I took no pleasure from that. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, this is Star Trek. This is what I want. This is the characters I like. This is something I can get behind. So, because I grew up, I was laughed at growing up. I was laughed at by my peers, taken advantage of, being a nerd and being overweight. Still kind of am trying to fix that a little bit, but but that was one of the many things that really appealed to me about this franchise. and just to see where it's been going lately, I would have never been into it I would have never gotten into it as a kid if they made shows back then the way they're made now. So, and that's just why Star Trek. That's why fans are just so upset, because this is something that truly means a lot to them. I mean, this has saved lives. Like people,
well, not only saved lives, but inspired people,
scientists, engineers, doctors.
There's something about Star Trek where it touches you with regard to the human condition that a lot of TV shows don't do. And even some really good TV shows. I mean, I can only think of one off the top of my head because I haven't watched a lot of modern television because I'm busy with writing. But I remember Game of Thrones before season 4 ended. And I remember people talking about how no one is really pure evil. They do evil things, but they're not evil. And you can see that everybody has a redemptive aspect to them, even though they've done terrible things.
Jamie Lannister. I'm thinking Jamie Lannister right now.
Well, you can, I was thinking of Cersei actually. But there are certain things, even in the real world, where you think that person, because with social media and everything, we just say, oh, he's evil, or he's a Trumper, or he loves Biden, or whatever. I'm just using your political nomenclature. We just go to these extremes, and then that's a way to dismiss them, because if we don't do that, then we have to really properly deal with them. And so one person that comes to mind is always Adolf Hitler. People say he's evil, and yet
there's more
from another perspective, there is a lot more to it. To another perspective, the German people loved him. Now, obviously, they're on that side of the world. It's different, but he was also a vegetarian and he loved animals. So
and
you
can't
say he was pure evil. He's Austrian. What do you mean?
He was Austrian. He was born in Austria.
No,
he wasn't German. He wasn't German. No, that's the funny thing.
No, I didn't say he was German. I said he was loved by the German people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but that's a good point you bring up, because a lot of people do think he was German, and then they look down, they associate German people with this. It's like Austria got away scot-free with having the worst person in history, living memory, do something. It's like, why don't we blame Austrians? But that's because no one knows anything about Austrians. They don't do anything on the world stage to the same degree as Germans. So Germany gets all the attention which is deserved for their engineering, mathematical skills.
They're the ones holding up the EU right now with all their manufacturing and everything. So
they're just more powerful economically as a country over Austrians. So it's easy to mistake Adolf Hitler for being German because he speaks German. But yeah, that's a good point you bring up. And so we misunderstand. Not only do we go to the extreme to get rid of people, that we also misunderstand who they are or where they come from.
There might have been a day where Hitler. I mean, I know I'm going to cringe say this. Maybe one day Hitler petted a puppy. Maybe one day he didn't kick a puppy, but he petted a puppy, or he gave a lollipop to a kid, or kissed a baby, or did something. I mean, it's never. I mean, I'm not defending him. I'm just saying, like, people are not evil every day for the sake of being evil. People are usually evil with good intentions. They do something and then they lose. Their judgment gets clouded in their goals, ambition.
One of the insights into, or one of the inspirations that feeds into my writing, is that I like listening to a lot of history podcasts, and there is one by Dan Carlin. He does hardcore history, and he did a 6-part series on the Mongols. And the first 5 parts is just this cataloging of events that began with Genghis Khan all the way to his grandson. And it basically, he depicts the rise and fall of the Mongol Empire. But the episode 6 or episode 7, he says that he's loved Genghis Khan for all the nasty stuff he did. He is loved now. And if you go to Mongolia, they've got a huge statue. They love him. You can never go there. And, with this Western sort of tear down the statue sort of philosophy, because they did one bad thing and it outweighs all the good things. You could never go to Mongolia and say, you should turn down that statue of Genghis Khan, because they'll put you on the next flight back out of the country. And he was saying, on a long enough timeline, at some point, Hitler is going to be talked about in the same way. And they're going to say, what was the benefit of having Adolf Hitler? Because we already talk about the benefit of having Genghis Khan. but we're detached from that by 800 years of history, and no one can get upset by that. And even the Mongols are not upset by that. They are directly on this planet because of what he did. And somebody at some point is going to write about the benefits of Hitler.
Genghis Khan, I know we're kind of going off topic here.
Way off
I don't
topic.
think, I mean, I know Genghis Khan conquered, and I know he did his good share of, killing, murder, or
Raping.
killing, raping, pillaging. But did he ever commit, genocide, which is
Yes.
what Hitler did? Oh, he did?
He committed genocide. He must have killed, they reckon he killed so many people that the carbon footprint of the planet was affected by it. You can actually see
Really?
in the timeline of carbon emissions when he was out there killing people.
Oh,
yeah, it's kind of wild.
Now,
yeah.
I think he got as far as Europe. I think he went all the way across Asia. I think didn't the Mongols get as far as Europe? I mean, I think a lot of Eastern European ancestry. I think there's some Mongolian or some Mongol.
The
Huns.
The Hungarians definitely got annihilated by the Mongol Empire, but they reckon that scouts went as far as Austria.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they were going to go for the Pope. But anyway, that's an aside. You want to talk about the audio drama?
Oh, yeah. Before we even get that, I want to say thank you to Orville Nation. He sent me a $3 super sticker. You are awesome.
Okay.
Orville Nation is the best Orville channel on the YouTube platform. And it's not just my opinion, like Tywin Lannister says. It's a fact. There you go. Speaking of which,
Orville Nation is that the same username on Twitter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
to tie this back into Star Trek, the audio drama, I listen to history podcasts because history repeats, and I want to get a sense of that and try to see if there's anything that can inspire me to put it into the story. And I also listen to a lot of podcasts from TNG writers who adhere to the classic Star Trek and talk about their time aboard writing it and stuff like that. Yeah.
You're talking about like Ronald D. Moore, all those guys from season 3, Michael Piller.
No, there's a writer who I listened to recently. He is called. Oh, that's great. I don't like it when show notes don't actually just explain who it is. I'll give it to you anyway. But I'll give you the name later. But the podcast is called Far-Fetched.
Far-Fetched. All right.
Yeah, he was a TNG writer. There's a few that I've listened to who talk on podcasts. The Treksperts Roundtable, the Treksperts Briefing Room is a good source to find out about what writers are thinking about with regards to the old Trek. And the Treksperts, those are 2 podcasts. I'll send them to you as links as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. What else did you want to ask about the audio drama?
Well, I don't know if I have any other questions. I did take notes and I did do a breakdown. So, but one thing I did not expect to see coming, you brought in Q for the moment Janeway leaves the bridge and goes to see Tom and B'Elanna in sickbay. And so Q just appears and he's like, "Congratulations." I was just like, "Oh." Is there more to this? Is there going to be any more with Q? Is this like a preview of more things to come? Are we going to see Junior again? Q2?
Before I answer that question, Orville Nation, yes, I did watch Orville. Q was there because he seems entirely logical to want to turn up and congratulate Janeway. And then in episode 2, Captain Janeway dreams about Q in a non-sexy way, of course, needs to be said. But bringing him into the show or to the story, I don't have any plans to, but I do want to say he is there. You do know that I'm making this up as I go along.
I mean, is that what writers do?
Quite possibly, but unless you're Michael J. Straczynski, you got 5 years later.
Where you write it like years before, and then you have your Bible. You give your Bible to Paramount, and then Paramount makes a show called Star Trek: Deep Space Nine. Whoops.
Yeah. What I've actually done is taken a cue from Marvel, and as I broke the audio drama into phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And I've outlined for myself certain things that I want to happen. So I actually have an ending in mind, but there's this journey to get there. And as I go along the way, I think, oh, this is a really good scene that will add to that ending, or this is a neat diversion that I didn't think about. the whole Icheb stuff. I mean, I knew I wanted him in Starfleet Academy, but I didn't know I was going to create these certain characters and then include Angela Brand back into the storyline. For
Yeah,
example,
it's
but
weird
now,
how all that. I mean, I'm not a writer myself, but I have written like I've written like videos, scripts, and stuff, and like I come up with ideas. Like ideas just come, and sometimes I change things because I have a new idea that I think is better, and then I'll modify what I've done to fit what I'm doing. So yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from.
okay, I'm not actually a writer. I should say that I only started writing stories after Star Trek Picard aired. And that, as we said at the beginning, I was frustrated, so I put that out there. So in the very beginning, the writing was a lot longer. I think episode 1 was like 16,000 or 17,000 words. And as I've edited it over the last 2 years, and I do keep revisiting it, editing it, and then re-uploading the audio, I've chopped out like 3,000 words. And in the beginning, I also had someone to help me, and he was a really good sort of guide, because he kept reminding me of certain things, and so he actually fundamentally changed some of the way I approach my own writing. And then since 2020, when the first episode came out, I've had to basically get up to speed with reading books about writing, taking listen to podcasts about writing, really trying to just get up there in skill while I'm writing it. But then the downside is that I felt like, oh, I've got better, and I have to go backwards and start rewriting some of the older episodes, so that if you listen to it for the first time and you said you was impressed by it, I want to make sure that Caretaken has been taken care of, so that if anybody does want to listen to it, they think, well, this first episode, this is good, because first impressions count, right?
Yes.
Now, some people have said, I wish you didn't, and I wish you'd get on with other episodes, but I really want to make the first one, especially the first 3, really good to the best of my ability, and keep revisiting it, so that those people are hooked in enough that they'll listen all the way through. And when I look at my download stats, I think to myself, oh, 50% drop off. Oh, I'm not happy with that personally. You will never see that, and I've never told anybody that. But for me, 50% drop off is kind of normal. But I would like it if the drop off wasn't like that, and people were like sharing it and stuff, because as far as I know, people aren't sharing it as much. So I take that as a criticism, valid criticism, and say it's not good enough. It's got to be better.
Yeah, whenever I do something, I always try to be my own biggest critic. Like I always try to tell myself, like, can this be better? So yeah. But I'm curious now. Now, you're responsible for putting everything together, putting the entire audio file, everything, including all the sound effects that you put in.
So the way it is, I write it, and I had the first guy helping me. He volunteered, and he was sort of re-editing my stuff for me. All his feedback, no matter how much feedback I get or what kind of feedback I get, I always try to turn it to a positive, because even the most nastiest criticism actually influences me in a positive way. So he helped me for a bit, and then I now have this wonderful Australian lady who's also my editor. And what's great is that she's also got the female perspective and helps in that regard. But it's me that's writing the story. Then I did have 2 editors at one point. Now I've just got 1 editor. And then I've also got to be responsible for all the audio editing, finding the audio files, and then it's my voice. And now slowly some people have volunteered their voices. So now I've got some free voice acting work from people who want to come in. I've offered to pay, but people are generous and they've declined payment. I've got someone doing the voice for Admiral Paris, and I've got someone potentially who wants to do the voice for Tom Paris or Icheb. So slowly I have to go back to those episodes, and there'll be less of me doing the one-man band aspect to it, and you'll hear these other voices, and I'll just stay as the narrator, because it is written in a novelistic way.
Okay. How can I audition? I did a single clip of voice work for a fellow YouTuber. He's making episodes of Star Trek Online with Species 8472. So I played a security officer. So Yeah, I've
Okay.
got, because I have a mic and I've been, doing more speaking. Yeah, I think that if there's potential,
If you can commit to something that is long term, because I'm only putting out 4 episodes a year, and I know, I mean, it says season 8, but it doesn't mean there's going to be 26 episodes. And even 26 episodes, 4 episodes a year is 4, 8, 12, 16. I'm sorry, I can't. 24,
about as long as
28.
it's about as long as the Star Trek show is. It's about
So
7, 8,
you're
7,
talking,
7 years.
you're potentially talking, 7 years just to get to 26 episodes.
Yeah.
And I never realized the commitment until I finished probably the second episode, and I was like, oh my god, I have to write faster. Actually, Brandon, my editor, is from Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, someone in the chat. I can see the chat. There is a podcast called Starship Excelsior, and it's about a sovereign class starship called the Excelsior. I think it's the Excelsior B. And they have a lot of voice actors on there, but that's written in a way where it's like a script, and the narration is kept to a minimum. So if so I've used that as a comparison to my podcast, and I don't want something that's constantly people doing dialogue, because the commitment is a lot on their time, and they might not be able to give me their time if I need an episode to be put out. So that's why there's a lot of narration, and I've written it like a novel. Plus, it can also be used as a book if I publish it as a book for free, of course, because it's not like I don't own the copyright to any of this.
Yeah, and you get the inner monologue too. That's the plus of writing it like a novel. So
yes, you do. But the guys at Starship Excelsior, and I've got to give them a shout out, they are responsible for giving me a lot of the audio files. So that's Two Drunken Dwarves Productions. Those guys have been really helpful. We're finding all sorts of little, particular door swoosh sounds and ship engine sounds and flyby sounds, stuff like that I try to find myself from episodes. So I really try to dissect episodes if I can't get anything from them. So, for example, the episode where the Doctor goes to Jupiter Station and he has to treat Dr. Zimmerman. Yeah, the door swoosh sound is different, and I want that door swoosh sound. So I'll actually get the episode, copy it, download it, and rip out and try to find a clean sort of opening and beginning to that sound effect, and then it's mine.
I want to learn how to do that. I want to get some sounds too. That was I love that episode too. With it was wasn't Troy in that one too? Both Troy and Barkley.
Barkley, yes.
It was basically,
and Barkley.
Yeah.
And Barkley's in the first episode.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
You get who does a lot of voice acting? Dwight Schultz. I mean, he pretty much, once Voyager ended, I think he stopped acting, like doing live action. Like now, all he does is voice work.
Okay.
So
okay. I met him once, by the way. Total asshole. No.
Oh, really?
No. He's all right. He's all right. He just wouldn't sign something that I asked him to sign. But I was only like 14 at the time, or 15. So I was really disappointed because I saw him there doing nothing, and I was like, "Could you sign this?" And he was like, "If you give me £15," and I was like, "I'm just a kid, please." And he wouldn't sign it. Like,
Orville Nation for $2. Does Jonathan watch Orville? You already answered it. Orville Nation has a story with him and JG Hertzler. So I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know who? I only met a couple actors. I only went to one Star Trek convention in my life, and it was Las Vegas last year. And I had nothing but positive interaction with Andrew Robinson, who plays Garrick. Okay. Nothing, but I thought he was a great, for an actor. I thought he was pretty cool, because usually actors, kind of act like we're here and they're here, But because I also got a autograph from Trip's actor. I forget his name, from Enterprise, engineer. And he didn't say anything to me. And I was like, I'm like, what do you think of the Star Trek franchise? Do you watch it? Do you watch the stuff that you're in? And he kind of came off as like, he looked at me. He's like, yeah, of course. I was like, oh, no, you don't. I was thinking, no, you don't. So
they actually, they have their own podcast now. They have their own YouTube channel. Yeah, Shuttlepod 1. And they actually say on the show that they haven't watched it, and they're going through it now.
I didn't think so. Now I know for a fact that Mr. Shatner has never watched anything that he's in. So I think I definitely could think the same. Patrick Stewart.
He's amazing. Why would he need to watch himself?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'll take. I retract my
What an
statement.
ego! What an ego on that guy.
Ego.
He's the only person who can get away with it.
Yeah,
What else
and
did you?
and I got a picture.
What's that?
I got a picture taken with him. They were showing Wrath of Khan. They were in 2018. They were going through like United States and probably I don't know if they went worldwide, but they were like showing Wrath of Khan at theaters, and then Shatner would come out after the movie and talk about his time being in the movies and his time breeding horses and breeding dogs, because that's all I think he really ever does besides act is breed horses and breed dogs. So but everybody laughed. Like everybody was just like, he's one of the funniest people you could ever listen to, and just he can just hold a room. And I bought the more expensive ticket, so I was able to get I didn't realize it, but I was able to get a picture taken with him. So it was my turn to go up to Mr. Shatner. I'm like, hello. I'm like, hi, Mr. Shatner. I tried to stick out my hand to shake his hand. He just sat there like this, like 90 degrees from me, and didn't even look in my direction. And then they're like, the people are like, get in line, stay there, smile. And I was like, okay. And I smiled, and Shatner just kept the same facial expression probably for every picture that he was in. So he just sat there, and yeah, that's my experience.
So does he breed horses or hogs?
He breeds horses and dogs. He's told a sad story about one dog that he bred that he had to put down. It was sad.
No, I think I'm too dry. Maybe I said horses or hogs.
Dorses or hogs?
Because the dogs and horses together.
Mm-hmm.
Dorses and hogs. No.
Dorses and hogs. Yeah.
No.
Swap the letters. Swap the letters.
No, he's breeding the hog, the dog, the hog. I got my words mixed up now. He's breeding the dogs and the horses together to make dorses or hogs.
Oh, I get it now.
It's a terrible joke. I'm too dry sometimes. Okay.
I tell dad jokes that just makes people's ears bleed. Dad in America, dad jokes are like just annoying. So it's mainly I tell a dad joke for the enjoyment of annoying other people. So
okay. I have some questions for you, by the way, for listening to the first episode. I was just wondering, with you only listened to one of them, did you have a favorite part in that first episode?
Well, good thing I took notes. I think I love the ending. The ending makes me want to watch the next episode with when they bring in Admiral what's his name? Yeah, Admiral Patterson. Yeah, I loved. What did I like? I loved all the callbacks. Especially TOS. I loved that you brought back Chell again. Like okay. I did not. There were things I did not know. Like I did not know that Chell wanted to be the chef or took over as the chef after Neelix.
So, he did though. That happened in the series.
It did. I looked it up. I took the time to look it up on Memory Alpha because I looked up. I was like, wait a minute, was Chell in more than one episode? Because for the longest time I thought he was only in Learning Curve, and then of course found out he was in that that other season 7 episode with the Maquis being attacked. But I was wondering if he was in any others. I was wondering where it was mentioned because I didn't know that. So I was learning things. The thing that I liked and got the most of was there were things I didn't even, or either I didn't remember or things I just didn't know. So it felt like I was rediscovering or discovering new things from something I've seen multiple times.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's deliberate because before we went live, you were talking about member berries, and I wanted to include as many references as possible, but not make them obvious. And I wanted them to sort of sit there. And if you know, like that meme, if you know, then you know. If you don't know, then it's just part of the story.
Yeah, I loved. I loved when Harry got promoted. That was a beautiful thing because Harry, poor bastard, he was an ensign for 7 years. So he got double promoted, right? So he went from ensign to full lieutenant. Okay.
Yes, which you can do. From what I've been told, you can do that. You can skip.
So if I remember correctly, it's ensign, then it's lieutenant junior grade, and then it's full. That's full lieutenant. So you have the two gold pins. Whereas I think in lieutenant junior grade you have one gold pin and you have one black pin.
Yeah, the ring black.
The ring. Yeah, the ring.
Yeah. But I didn't realize what I was doing there because when I was using it as a sort of funny moment because Tom and Balana go to bed and they say, we're not going to miss much. It's just a couple of speeches. And obviously he's just come off from meeting his dad again. And then the next scene, boom, you're promoted. And it's like, oh, Tom's missing it. So it's like, eek, awkward. But then I realized I've made him a lieutenant now. So I have to address him as a lieutenant. And it was just really weird to then remember that throughout. I've got to do that now for the rest of the show.
I also loved how Tom and his father, which I felt should have been in the show, Tom and his father's, their relationship finally got resolved. Or in other words, they made up.
Yeah, that's actually part of, we were talking before about the writer should step aside for the story. I actually have problems or have had problems with my dad, and it fits perfectly because that is sort of gives me insight into hopefully write a more realistic scene between father and son. And for me and my dad, I've had to push some things aside because he just doesn't remember. And there's a sort of sad irony with growing up as a child. You have this moment which deeply affects you as a child, and you think to yourself, well, no, so you don't know how to articulate yourself, so you let the moment go, but you always play on your mind. It always plays on your mind. And then when you are old enough and you try to address your parents, they say, I don't remember, because it wasn't meaningful for them. So it's so unsatisfying. And when you realize that, when you truly understand that, you just have to let shit slide, basically. And so there's a lot of things that he's got away with. Nothing terrible. Don't get me wrong. It's all relative, isn't it? But it then informed me with that scene where his father just says, listen, let's just not talk about this. Let's just forget it. I'm proud of you. And I'm happy with what you've done. Even though I don't understand what you've done to the fullest degree, you're still my son. Yeah, that's what he says in the scene.
Okay, so yeah, that it was beautiful. I was curious if the driving reason was because he's now a grandfather, or just the fact that he missed his son, like his son was missing for several years, and he was just so grateful to have him back.
I think it's a mixture of all of it.
Yeah,
and I do put a line in there to say, because Balana says it, that human fathers usually sort of warm up or they soften up once they know they've got a grandchild.
Yeah.
So
that's why I was thinking. That's why I had the question.
Yeah. So, so that's from her perspective, but my perspective is basically Tom's perspective, intermixed with the men, basically, right? That whole father-son thing that I've never had any reconciliation for.
Yeah, and another thing is, I'm glad Chakotay had something to do, because Chakotay was pretty much absent from the finale. Like what did
he do in this episode? I've got to reread it. There's so many words I've got to troll through. What did he do?
He was with Janeway being debriefed with Paris, okay. And then of course at the very end he gets all the Maquis. So every Maquis crewman gets discharged from service.
Yeah,
and then I was surprised with Janeway being relieved and being subjected to future court-martial. I know that I'm sure that's going to be addressed in the next episode. So I'm sure. I know you're not going to go in any further with that, but is it? I do have a question. Is it safe for me to say? Is it something that she did in the Delta Quadrant?
Excuse me. So let me just mention something about Chakotay first, then Captain.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of went.
It's okay.
Multiple directions.
If you go back to the very first scene, you sort of get this what is everybody thinking sort of moment where the viewpoint passes between three of the bridge crew: Harry, Janeway, and Chakotay. And Chakotay is concerned about what will happen to him. And he reflects on the fact that 1 minute he's in the Delta Quadrant, whatever happens in the Alpha Quadrant doesn't matter. And now he's back and it's like, oh, certain things are actually relevant. And it's true, sometimes you don't consider something until you're in that space and you think, oh, I didn't anticipate that. So that sort of tries to tie in some of what happened in Endgame. But then he meets Admiral Mitchell, who is actually technically canon, by the way. If you want to know, I can tell you later. But he meets Admiral Mitchell and he thinks Admiral Mitchell is going to be very abrupt with him and mistreat him in some sort of way and show some disdain. And Admiral Mitchell doesn't. And it's to lull him and the listener into a false sense of security. because Mitchell and Paris don't actually care about their Maquis roots. Okay, until the very end, where you think Chakotay's safe. He's had the meetings with the top brass. He's allowed, and then Patterson comes in with the final sort of say, so to speak. But the subtext of that, by the way, is you've got 3 admirals, and the 3 admirals visited Captain Janeway. You got an admiral of the past, admiral of the present, and an admiral of the future, just like in A Christmas Carol.
So I'm just taking it Admiral Mitchell is because he's the younger admiral and he's the new admiral. He's the admiral of the future, whereas Admiral Patterson was admiral from the past and present is Admiral Paris.
Something like that. I went Paris is the past. I can't remember which order it is now, but it's somewhere in my notes.
I thought Patterson was the past because he had a history with
no, because he changes
Janeway.
her future. But it's open to interpretation.
Oh.
Who says it has to be my way? So you take it your way. But also, Tuvok, Janeway relates a story saying that Tuvok chewed her ass out in front of 3 admirals as well. So there's this 2 references. One's subtext, but one's another callback, which I don't think anybody would get, to when Janeway made a mistake and Tuvok called her out in front of 3 admirals. Right? Another layer. But anyway, so that's the Chakotay part. With Janeway, there's this fan fiction that I found from 20 years ago where there's this mock courtroom drama, and it's about 10,000 words long. I've copied it and managed to get hold of one of the, I say surviving members of the writers because I haven't found the other 3. You know, one of those old BB boards, forum boards. I found it on this half-broken website, and they list out all the things that Janeway did in the Delta Quadrant. And so in the next episode, that pad that Patterson gives her has 32 charges against her.
Shit.
Right? So it's all cataloged. And so I have 10,000 words that I have to sort of now remix into my story. But it's all laid out for me with star dates and particular characters and stuff. Yeah.
I have to ask because it's very popular on the internet. Is Tuvix one of those charges?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Of course. Okay. Yeah.
Because that's like that's like if you go to I've heard plenty of YouTubers, Redditors say that Janeway is basically a murderer because she executed Tuvix. She executed Tuvix. That wow.
Yeah, but she also did try to kill an Equinox crew member as well.
Which one? Ransom?
Remember
Captain
the
Ransom?
black guy, another black guy that she sort of, took it too far with, not implying anything.
Okay, so she went pretty crazy in Equinox Part 2.
Yeah, and Chakotay had to hold her back.
Yes,
like
he did.
Equinox Part 2.
Yeah, I liked it when Chakotay and Janeway got to like a little, they got to very different sides of an issue. Scorpion Part 2 was like that too. So
right.
Whereas she wanted to maintain the Borg alliance, and Chakotay's like, no, we can't trust them. And then then he decompresses and gets rid of all the Borg except for 7 of 9.
Yeah, number 7. So. Is there anything you want to? My next question for you is: there anything you want to see in the story? Now you don't have the benefit of listening to the other 4 episodes. Sorry.
I mean, I would love to, even though we're in the Alpha Quadrant now, I'd love to see, I'd love to see. I love follow-ups to ideas, but I love new ideas as well. I'm very curious if there's going to be a new Voyager mission. Is there going to be? Are the crews going to be split up? Are they going to go? Is everyone going to go their separate ways at this point? Is Janeway still going to be the captain? Well, technically, she becomes admiral.
Which I've got to abide by.
Admiral.
So. Something like that. Yeah, I've got to abide by that. So, and I'm not going to contradict that. That's why the cover of the podcast has her in the admiral uniform. So
I always thought Chakotay became captain. So I'm not sure if that's the direction you're going to take.
He does in the David Mack series. He is mentioned. I'll tell you something though, and this is one of the things that I would try not to do. If you read the books more than just the Christie Golden ones, they love to member berry so much in the books, and you can in a way because The writing is free. You can just visualize it. The words just give you the sort of holodeck in your head to sort of, yeah, he's there as well. And if you read the Destiny trilogy by David Mack, I swear to God, I think every single TNG captain, admiral is just mentioned in it because it's a huge cataclysmic galaxy-wide ending threat in the story. And it's like, okay, but they don't create any new characters except for the Federation president. And Chakotay is at this massive fleet battle. And can I spoil it?
Go ahead.
No, best not spoil it. But he's there,
Okay.
and they are limited. They can't kill the character because it's up to Kirsten Bayer and her novels to continue the character. But it's so obvious. It's like, of course he survives. But some people say that the books, they sort of want to play on the nostalgia and not move things forward, because Chakotay's still in Starfleet. Tom Paris is still in Starfleet, and people question it and say, really, do they really want to stay in Starfleet? And so I'm asking that question continuously in my story. Do they want to stay in Starfleet? So that's where I will diverge. Yeah.
Okay. And the Brandon House says, does Harry ever get beyond the rank of ensign? Well, we just talked about it. Yeah. Episode 1.
I thought Brandon, I thought you listened to it. I thought you listened to the audio drama. But okay, maybe he didn't. I thought he did. He's one of mine from the Discord.
Welcome. I think it's my first time seeing you on this channel. What else would I like? Well, I would like 7 of 9. So here's my. I talked about. I bring up a show that must not be named, but I hated how they destroyed the future of Icheb in 7 of 9. Well, in my opinion, 7 of 9 and Picard. So I want to see Icheb become the Starfleet officer that he was, meant to be. Okay. I mean, because I don't like. It's weird, but I feel like him and 7 of 9 would have been better off in the Delta Quadrant based on what I saw in Picard. Like you come all the way back to Earth just to get this very nihilistic future. So
right, that's a valid. I will dismiss Picard because they take this nihilistic view in what is supposed to be a utopian future where 7 is not trusted and she's sort of, what's the word, discriminated against because she's part Borg. And yet Icheb, I mean, the episode contradicts itself, never mind classic TNG canon, but it contradicts its own canon because Icheb got through Starfleet. And supposedly
Borg too.
7 didn't. And she says in the very first episode that I watched, Janeway fought for her and she didn't want to, so she just left.
Because in this new mentality of writing now, characters just give up. I mean, Luke Skywalker, he gave up. Obi-Wan, he gave up. Picard, he gave up.
And that's a fundamental misreading of the basically the heart and soul of classic Trek. And I don't know why some people turn their attention away from that and say, yeah, well, this is fine, new Trek is great, but it's not. It's going against itself and the previous Trek. So how can it be Star Trek? Where's the optimistic future? And I guess someone said it to me, or someone said it on Reddit, sorry, is that classic Trek gave you an opinion to consider, and new Trek gives you an issue to agree with. And I guess that's where people are taking solace from, where they think, no, this is great. Trek has always been political, so it's doing the thing that Trek did, and it's such a nuanced difference.
Trek was also moral too. It wasn't just political; it was also moral too.
Yeah,
where new Trek is missing the morality. They're trying to be political
but they don't seem to,
and without the, without giving you, the food for thought.
But they don't seem to care about that. It's the political that takes over because everything in the States is political, and you've got to have your side win, I guess. And so it's given a pass on a political level when fundamentally it just breaks the show. But they don't seem to want to care, or it's too much of an expectation because I would say that us two or anybody in this live stream is probably a hardcore Star Trek nerd or geek, whatever the nomenclature is,
Nerdporeal.
and Nerdporeal. Okay, yeah, okay, that's how you identify. And
You know who I identify as? I identify as an admiral, and I'll show you a clip right here. Admiral. Just the way he says admiral, it just is like mythical in my opinion. So that's why I identify as. I identify as an admiral. Why?
Okay.
No reason. Because Khan's a cool character, the way he says it.
I think a lot of people don't care for the details like we would. And so if we bring up the details and argue it, they might feel insulted on some level because they don't know what we're talking about. And they just say, no, it's always been political, because that's their surface reading of it. And that's not, I'm not faulting them. They just have a different interpretation.
People want to enjoy it. I mean, people want to enjoy things. People want to enjoy things. And as much as I might disagree, I want people, I don't want to take away that enjoyment. So instead of shaming them, or just the thing that people make a big mistake about is people just like, when someone says they like something, a lot of people especially on Twitter and on both sides, not just the side that doesn't like New Trek, but also on the side that does like it, they like to shame each other, or to just say it sucks, and instead of saying I respectively disagree. But the thing is, one thing that Star Trek has taught that's taught its viewers is to be open-minded and to ask questions. You want to ask questions. So if somebody liked it, so there are people out there that love Strange New Worlds. I would ask, what'd you like about it? Or I'd be like, I'm glad you found something to like about it, because I don't, because it's Akiva Goldsman run, excuse me. So, but the big thing about Strange New Worlds that I don't care for is that to me, it's a retcon of the original series. Once I saw that Balance of Terror ripoff episode where they literally copied Balance of Terror, it's a retcon. It's not part of the original, because that is something you don't break. You can break the whole warp thing. I'm okay with, because original series you could go up to warp 14. They changed that. I was okay with that. They reinvented the warp scale. The warp scale. They modified the galaxy. The galaxy in TNG is much bigger from the episode The Price, where now you have the 4 quadrants and everything. I mean, I was okay with those changes. But when you fundamentally change something that is established, and it's easy to know, it's not like knowing a part of the ship, like to the point where Sulu or George Takei would know exactly what button was on the panel, or the first Doctor in Doctor Who knew exactly every button of what everything did on the TARDIS. I mean, I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting just some simple plot consistencies, like the Federation never seeing the Romulans until Balance of Terror, which the end of Strange New Worlds violated. And I literally bitched on Twitter about that. I don't usually bitch on Twitter, but that was a big deal, because even Enterprise, like I said earlier, even Enterprise followed it. That's a major thing. That's a major thing to ignore. That just makes you either they're lying to the audience saying it's part of the same universe, which clearly it's not, or they're just that ignorant.
I have two things. So two things to say about this. One, that episode, I don't even remember the name of it. It didn't upset me because it was basically a what if in Captain Pike's mind. So I didn't care.
Okay, that's a good way to think of it.
I didn't really care, and they were just playing with the episode. But what's really strange about the Strange New Worlds, and someone else said it, so this is not an original thought. I think this was the Penske Files podcast host said this.
I've listened to them before.
They're awesome. The Strange New Worlds should be the TV series that should be referencing Trek with member berries, left, right, and center. But it doesn't to the same degree that Star Trek Discovery does, where even I know, because I watched the only episode of Star Trek Discovery I watched was the first episode of season 4. And I think they launched the Archer space dock or something, and everyone's clapping. It's like, really, there was nobody else more momentous than Archer in the last 1,000 years. So it's just needless member berries. But Strange New Worlds should be full of them, and it isn't. It's quite restrained. But at the same time, my other thought is they should say that all of New Trek is alternate history, it's alternate universe, whatever it is, because it doesn't align with the Prime timeline. And they keep saying it does, but it doesn't. And if they did just say it's not Prime canon or Prime,
I'd be okay with it.
I'd be like, I would be okay, yeah, and you would be, I would be, and I might even watch Discovery and say, well, this is an alternate universe because Marvel have said, look what we can do with the alternate universe. We can really mess around. We can kill Doctor Strange. Spoilers, and we can have him in the episode.
I'm gonna go on a limb here and say there was actually a good Discovery episode that I didn't like. Remember the episode with the big giant, the giant being that has like the library, that big being that dies, and they get the information. They get like all the galactic information from him. But then the rest of the season falls apart because evil control wants that information. I love the episode where they discovered this alien and they had the opportunity to learn about the universe. I thought that was great. And the alien was the explorer, not them.
Okay.
It was probably one of the few Discovery episodes I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Do you remember that? You didn't watch it. Sorry, I forgot.
Just
My bad.
Episode.
You didn't watch Discovery.
No, it's okay. No, I don't know. I just can't. I just wish they would just admit that it's alternate canon, and there's no harm done. Really, there's no harm done, because if you really love Trek, like a lot of people do, they will watch anyway, regardless, because they're already watching it now. I mean, look how many times they've said Kirk and Spock are not gay, and yet there's so much Kirk and Spock fan fiction out there because people have ignored it. They just said, well, this is the way we want it. They say Bashir and Garak are gay, and there's fan fiction out there. And so
it's not. I mean, Andrew Robinson himself said Garak is gay in the What She Left Behind documentary. And what's funny is I never saw it I never saw it that way. But rewatching Deep Space Nine, especially the first episode, Past Prologue, where he has his hands on Bashir's shoulders, like okay, maybe, but he's still an awesome character regardless.
My point is though is that those people, irrespective of what the producers say, will write their own headcanon to bring it back in to the rest of the series to align it up. So even if you said it's alternate universe, I'd be happy, you'd be happy, and all the other people who don't care really about Star Trek as much, or they say they do, they can just write their own headcanon and tie it back into the Prime universe. So the producers don't actually lose anything. If anything, they'll get less angst on the internet, which I think part of it is they want to play up to it and deflect from their own writing abilities. But anyway, we're back on New Trek.
Yeah, I know. but going back to your question of what stuff I'd like to see, well, I want to see each have a bright future. I want him to live. I don't want him to be murdered. To have 7 of 9, mother. I don't want that. So
no, of course I'm not gonna write anything like that. If there's certain things I've said from the beginning I'm not going to write, is, as I said, I'm not going to break canon. I'm not going to do an end of the world, galactic level, Avengers threat
every season
in the story. No, just for this however long.
That's what they do in New Trek. They have a world, they have a universe-ending threat every season, or something.
Right?
Almost,
yeah,
or
that
something
bit I know.
along those lines.
But I find smaller stories work on an emotional level, on a comprehension level. You know what the stakes are, and so I will not do that. So my story will not include the Borg. I won't bring the Borg back in. It won't involve huge fleets of ships, even though I could write huge fleets of ships. There's just nothing that's going to be massive. It's going to be focused on our characters. Okay.
And you said it's going to follow up on the Dominion. So
and it still follows up on the Dominion War.
So one thing I know about, one thing I forget which I don't know if it was the episode "Message in a Bottle" where the Voyager crew finds out what the Dominion did to the Maquis in season at the end of season 5. I forget the name of that episode where the Dominion helps the Cardassians destroy the Maquis.
Yeah,
on that one.
I can't remember the name of it.
I think that was the same. That was the same episode where Eddington gets killed. I think. That pretty much similar. Once Eddington got killed, that was pretty much the end of the Maquis right there.
Right, which gets a mention in my story. The whole Maquis thing. Here's the thing: here's the thing about something that we should have addressed at the beginning, is that the Christie Golden Books dispenses with the Maquis stuff, and the rest of New Trek dispenses with the Dominion War. My story basically picks up what's left over of the Maquis and brings it back onto the sort of chessboard, so to speak, and in little ways that are actually fundamental to how the characters have to survive in the Alpha Quadrant that matter. As you can see, Patterson has come in and said, right, off the ship. That's one instance of it. Okay. And there has to be this sort of reconciliation, because if you think about it, the Maquis, Chakotay's cell is the only surviving cell that made it. All the others got wiped out or they were dispersed. So his are back. And so what effect does that have when there's free Maquis? I keep saying Maquis, but anyway, what is the consequences of that? And I want to play into that. Okay. And this is not, how can I explain it? No, go on. I'm scared of spoilers.
You mentioned you mentioned in the first episode the Cardassians, like they have a new government. They already have a new government installed. So I'm curious if those worlds that the Maquis, the people that eventually became the Maquis live on, and the demilitarized zone. I remember I think it was Admiral Paris or one of the admirals said like that whole area is a mess. So we're going to follow up on that. Where Chakotay and maybe the rest of the Maquis try to go there and maybe try to
not Chakotay,
rebuild some homes, help the people, the settlers there rebuild their homes. And
so what happened in DS9 when they did the Treaty of Bajor, at the last episode, they said the Dominion have to leave, and the territory that the Federation took, the Federation Alliance took, they give back to Cardassians. But the territory that the Klingons took before the Dominion War still belongs to them legally. So it's up to the Cardassians and the Klingons to sort that out. And the Federation, and I do touch on this in other episodes, the Federation are sort of in between, because militaristically speaking, the Klingons they haven't got much of a military left. That's what DS9 said. And the Cardassians are being given aid by the Federation. So they're not playing both sides, but they're involved with both sides. So that area is a little bit more contentious, yes. But Chakotay, I don't feel like is going to go there to resolve anything to do with the Maquis, actually. And you really need to listen to the second or the third episode where the consequences of something that Sisko did plays into the story.
Oh, okay. Wasn't the one where I remember there was the episode where Sisko threatened Eddington, he was like gonna like make the planet uninhabitable if they didn't get off the planet.
That plays into the story and on a character level, and there's a twist to it, because again it's about perspective and what is it? How does that work for the Bajorans when the emissary did something like that, which was never explored in the show, and I'm intrigued by it because it affects one of the characters. Okay. So it really is tying in so much from the other 3 TV shows.
I do have another question that was teased in the first episode. Will the EMH meet Vic Fontaine? Will he make the trip to DS9 to meet Vic Fontaine?
It seems a bit fan servicey at the moment. I'm not intending to write it like that. I just wanted a cute moment, because if you're sticking to characters, of course, Miles was there for all the Borg stuff, all the holodeck stuff. Barclay was there for the holodeck stuff, and Moriarty. And then you've got this sentient hologram, and they're just going to play off each other. And then Miles knows about Vic Fontaine, and it's like, okay, I'm trying to make this as funny as possible. And it's just a fun thing, but it does sort of bruise the Doctor's ego a bit, because he's come back to a different world himself, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he's looking for acceptance, and something that maybe is too much of a deep reference is that I said to you that he changes his uniform. He reskins himself. And he's so far the only character that's in the new uniform. And I make a mention of that. Like Harry Kim's in the old one. Janeway, Chakotay, they've all lost their uniforms.
So at that point, I think they were wearing the gray. They were wearing the gray,
the first
the gray shoulder. At the black uniforms with the gray shoulder. I think that was 22. That was, I think, season 5 of DS9, I believe, is when they started with that. Or was it season 4? I think it was
No,
season
halfway
5.
through season 5.
Halfway through. Okay, so that era.
Yeah.
So we see that we see that continue, and I think we see those in First Contact, those uniforms, and then of course we definitely see them in Insurrection.
Yeah, they were
maybe
first in First
Nemesis.
Contact. Yeah.
So I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan. I saw the uniforms in Picard. I'm like, I'm not a fan of those. I'm not a fan of those uniforms that they showed in Picard years after the fact. I'd rather have them bring back those gray outfits. Those were pretty cool.
But I'm speaking to, I'm explaining some of the subtext here, where the Doctor seeks acceptance, so he gets the uniform, whereas the other ones are not seeking acceptance and they don't get the uniform.
That's part of Doctor. Doctor loves having the attention because of Doctor craves the attention because the way Janeway treats him throughout Voyager. She always ignores him, always treats him like he's some second class hologram.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
And then Tuvix, she completely, countered, despite the fact that he says, "I will do no harm" to Tuvix. She completely just shuts him down. She's terrible to him. They did not have the best relationship in that show.
Yeah, that's right. By the way, there is one more thing that maybe you can give me some feedback on, because you're an American, is that I am going to continue some of Chakotay's Indian heritage, his Native American heritage. And some people have said you should not write about Native Americans.
Bullshit.
And there's this saying, write what you know. And I don't like that saying, because then that means I can only write about what I know, which is really limiting.
Maybe you'll learn about something. It'll give you an opportunity to learn about something new, and then you can write about
it. But it's this idea that a white person cannot write about the Black experience, which is valid, but I have no intention of writing about the Black experience. But I want to follow thematically, or follow within the flavor of what Chakotay has done with regard to his heritage, where he had like an undescribed. We weren't told what tribe he was from. In my story, I name drop the tribe that he's from, and I base everything that he does culturally from that particular tribe. So I'm doing the background research, and hopefully in a non-offensive way. And I actually have some authentic language. Like in the new movie Prey, they speak Comanche.
Oh, I've heard mixed things, but I've heard mostly positive things about Prey.
Right. In my story, there's a character he meets, and she actually speaks the tribal language to him, which serves his character. So I've actually got an authentic person from that tribe. I paid for the translation so I could have it in the show. And it might pop up. As long as they don't talk like
21st century, as long as they don't have 21st century vernacular, like, oh my God, what is going on? Like just the way people talk in our day and age and stuff. One thing that I love about fantasy or science fiction is the language, the choice of words, how they talk, which is another issue I have with New Trek, is they talk like a lot of the aliens talk like they're from 21st century Boston or something, or United States, Chicago. I mean, I want to be taken into the world, and part of being taken into the world is the use of language to make it unique. And so I can't wait. Like I want to hear I can't wait to experience what the fruits of your research.
Okay, but I mean, it's only a couple of words. It's very expensive translation. It's like $10 for like 3 words.
Really?
But
wow.
Yeah, because they actually had to contact someone else to bring them in to do the translation and then explain it and say these are the permutations, because that particular tribal language, the way you say my home is your home is different depending on who you're saying it to. That's the line in English. My home is your home. And Chakotay doesn't understand, because if in Tattoo, he doesn't speak the language of his tribe. So I'm playing into that because the person says the words, and then she changes it to Spanish, and you just get mi casa su casa, or mi casa es su casa, which is simple to translate in English. But I've always believed, and I believe what Robert Meyer Burnett says, where Star Trek is a period piece, and so I'm trying to write the dialogue to fit the period of that time. And so, like you, I get upset when I've watched some of New Trek, and I'm like, but they don't speak like that. But they don't say gigabytes. They don't say cool or yes, because Picard says it in season 2. He's on the intercom with his team, trying to get the Borg Queen before she does the dance on the stage or whatever, and he acknowledges them, but he doesn't say affirmative. He says something like cool or okay, and even that is a subtle difference as to how Picard speaks and therefore how everyone else speaks in Trek. They just haven't got the dialogue down, and I'm trying really hard to sweat those details.
I mean, if they, yeah, I mean, I would, as nerds, I mean, as a nerd, I'd appreciate it if I always appreciate consistency. That's the nerd. That's the nerd in me. So, but yeah, you're right. The language is just off sometimes, and sometimes I can brush past it, but sometimes it's just cringy. Like hearing them say the F word in Trek, I'm just like, no, please. It's. I mean, you can say the F word in Alien. You could say it in other types of science fiction, whereas it's not like it's not a period piece. It's not like an epic. It's not like an epic fantasy, like for instance Star Wars, or but like something like The Expanse would work because it's a gritty, more realistic, hard science fiction that I could see. But Star Trek has always been optimistic. And saying the F word in an optimistic show about people who want to better themselves is counterproductive, in my opinion. It just doesn't fit. So,
yeah.
Hey,
we're going over time, so I don't know if you want to have some final thoughts or wrap it up. And I'm concerned about your bedtime. That's all.
Oh, my bed. No, don't worry about me. We stay up. Americans don't get any sleep. Yeah, actually, I get plenty of sleep. I just because I'm in between jobs right now, I can stay up late. So.
Oh, okay.
But what was it again? What else? 7 of 9. So I just hoping you're going to continue her character arc. She doesn't regress into Jerry Ryan playing Jerry Ryan like she does in Picard, because that's that. I don't see 7 of 9. I see Jerry Ryan just playing herself. She's just like playing her snarky self.
Let me ask you a question then, as an answer. If a Borg drone of her capability came back and was considered friendly to the Federation and to Starfleet, how do you think she would be utilized? What's logical? How do you think she would be utilized?
Technology. They would probably try to get as much technology out of her Borg, like their understanding of Borg technology.
But who would
the Borg ever come back?
Who would try to utilize it and how? Because we've already seen the Ferengi try to liquefy her to get her nanobots.
When did that? You referenced that.
Season 7. Season 7.
When did were the Ferengi? Because I remember the only time I remember the Ferengi and Voyager was in season 3.
It's the episode called Inside Man, where the holographic Barclay comes on board Voyager.
Oh, okay.
And he's been
that
corrupted.
holographic Barclay was sent by the Ferengi.
Yes, they tricked.
Oh, interesting.
Brandon has some interesting answers, but how do you think she should be recognized or received?
I think they should. I mean, I want to see her working with the Federation to just help them learn to fight the Borg in case the Borg ever come back, or to move them forward, like the whole astrometrics thing that she built. More innovation like that. And of course, I want to continue to see her become more human, not snarky Jerry Ryan, but to see her become more and more human, become more and more compassionate, to fall in love and all that, and to not have to mercy kill Ichab.
Okay. Well, I'm not. She's not going to be received in the negative way, as you say. Brandon, it's Inside Man. It's not Renaissance Man. Renaissance Man is to do with the Doctor focus story. But I believe that Starfleet would want to take advantage of her in the way that the Federation and Starfleet would, which is how they accepted Commander Data. That's my belief.
In measure of a man.
No.
type
I
of
mean,
deal?
they find him on that planet after the crystalline entity gobbled up everybody, and
Oh,
then they just let him
yeah.
go into Starfleet. They don't try to copy him. They might even, heck, when they activated him, or before they activated him, they didn't say, let's just make 1 billion of them. They just activated him. So they didn't take advantage of him. So I don't think
The
they
thing
would
is,
take advantage of
couldn't
Seven.
really replicate him that easily. I mean, Dr. Soong's work was so unique. I mean, even Data himself couldn't duplicate Dr. Soong's work. Like Lal died within a few days or weeks. I don't remember the time in the Offspring, which that episode always makes me cry. The way that episode ends, dude, that's such great writing.
In TNG, Data is like 20-something years old. So who's to say?
Yeah, he was found 29 years prior to season 1, I believe.
Right.
Data
so
War.
Who's to say that they couldn't? I mean, I'm not saying they did do this. I'm just saying as a what if. When they first find him, they could have spent 20 years on him just trying to figure out how to copy it. They realized they can't, and then they activated him, and they're like, oh, okay. Then they deactivated him, and then they spent 20 years copying him, and you never actually meet him on the Enterprise D. That's, they could have done that, but they didn't. Who's to say? Because well, actually, the show says they didn't because he's just activated straight away, but they didn't have to do that. I don't know who that is. Jamaica Highwater.
I don't know. I don't know who that is either. Brandon, elaborate. I appreciate you being here, Brandon, and it's the same to you, Jonathan. I was going to make a clip, but I didn't have time. Have you ever seen the original Rollerball from 1975?
Barely.
Well, the main character's name is Jonathan, and he's Rollerball is basically a movie about it's basically a dangerous roller derby where they wear spikes and they it gets to a point where corporations are running all the sports in the world, and James Caan is the main character. He's the star of this one particular team, and his name is Jonathan, and he's like Michael Jordan. He's like everybody every time he gets onto the roller rink. And the audience is like, Jonathan, I wanted to create one for you, but I didn't have time. And then I wanted to pretend to say, hey, I have a transmission coming in. And then I would have showed the clip of the movie with them, cheering Jonathan, So, but that's a great movie. It's a great science fiction. It's a great mid-70s science fiction. Basically, it's another dystopian science fiction. So
okay. I don't mind dystopian.
It's basically corporations have taken over everything, where people are starting to slowly lose their humanity, and it gets to a point where the head of the corporation wants this James Caan's character to retire. He's like, no, I don't want to retire. I want to keep playing. They're worried he's getting too popular for the good of mankind, and so they're trying to get him to quit. So they keep changing the rules, making the game more and more dangerous to the point where there are no rules. They could just they can kill each other in the game. So, right. And that's kind of what the movie is, and it gets messed up at some points, but it's a great science fiction.
Okay, I will check it out.
Then I agree. Bayshore says the remake's like the one with Chris Klein. Yeah, that was terrible. I came out when I was in high school. I remember going to see it after school. I didn't even know there was an original Rollerball until my dad told me about it. So. But other than that, no, I don't really have any other questions. I was really happy with what I heard. I want to listen to it again because I'm sure there's plenty of details I did not pick up on. I'd love to. I mean, I was listening to your thing, and I know you were saying you're looking for potential, voice actors. Now, I'm not a professional voice actor. I've done a single line, but I've been recording. I've been doing, monologues and dialogues ever since I started this channel. So. Yeah. So
let's arrange something on the back end in DMs and see where we can take it, because if you've done it before, I don't mind trying it out. Try and get you a couple of characters if you can. And I'm just grateful that somebody wants to help out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to help.
Okay.
So
great. I'll give you credit and everything, of course.
But yeah, I'd love to. I want to check out the rest of the series, and I'd love to bring you back on to talk about the rest of the episodes.
Okay.
But I felt I felt like there was always a hole in my heart after, because I watched through a DS9 a few years ago, and I watched all Voyager, and after watching Voyager, I was just like, this could have ended much better. Like it just felt like there was just not enough closure to it, and this feels like, even though it's a beginning of a new series, it feels like it's giving that additional context to the closure of the original show, and I can truly appreciate that.
Something we talked about before we started the live stream, and I said, remind me. You've reminded me. The reason why I've done a fan fiction of Voyager and not DS9 is because DS9 closed itself off so well. It would be very hard to write a continuation series. You just have to start from scratch, and you've got Bashir, Dax, Kira, and Nog on the station now, and then you'd have to create the other new characters to go with them to fill the positions that we've known from the show. So Voyager was my way in to get back into that timeline, basically, because it was so incomplete. And at the time, I felt insulted. This is just to go back onto Endgame. I felt kind of not insulted. That's not fair, because it was not that dramatic. I just felt let down by the fact that DS9 got 10 episodes to wrap everything up, half a season almost, and Voyager gets 90 minutes. It's like you could have done 10 episodes as a send off, but I understand it's a different network. The production values are different, and you've got to make it so that normies can just watch it out of order and stuff like that. Whereas DS9, Ira Bear just went to that idea. So this is my way of trying to heal Voyager, but also I just want to get to DS9, and I've got characters that will travel there. If you listen to the second and third episode, there will be a crossover. So I'm using Voyager in a way, respectfully, to get to DS9, because that's where my heart is.
There is one more.
There's nothing away from Voyager. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
There is one other thing. I know this is way far removed from the first two seasons, because I always wondered, like, one thing I liked about TNG's ending, DS9's ending, and heck, if you've ever seen Star Trek Continues, I love Star Trek Continues ending. I like how with finales, especially Star Trek finales, they usually go back to the beginning. So because the way Voyager begins with the Sporosistian caretaker, and then in season 2 they encountered Suspiria, the mate, and then the mate kind of vanishes. Her and those Ocampa just kind of vanish. I was kind of hoping, like, I don't know if you really care about the Ocampa or the, I forget what the race of the caretaker's race is called. But will we ever see Suspiria and those other Ocampa again? Even though they already made it back home, I felt like they should have.
Do you mean have I envisioned a way to write them back into the show?
I'm assuming you haven't, but have you ever given any thought?
Not to Suspiria, but I have thought about the original Ocampa and Homeworld. I have thought about writing them back in, but I'm not going to say how.
Of course not. But I do have a question. Maybe this was addressed in the show. Can they contact Neelix? Can they contact Neelix with the Pathfinder? Or with the array?
I'm sure they could. If they can contact Voyager through Pathfinder, I'm sure they can point the array where Neelix is.
Because isn't he the ambassador? Didn't they make him like the ambassador to the Delta Quadrant or something?
But
Federation ambassador.
I need a good story reason why.
So the question is, will Neelix have a role in the future?
I need a story. I need a story reason, because Neelix doesn't know they made it back unless they use the Pathfinder array to send a message and someone says something to him. Otherwise, Neelix is off the board.
Because I remember they talked to him in Endgame, but I'm assuming this was when they were still on. Yeah, of course, this was when they were still on there in the Delta Quadrant. So yeah, he does. Yes, you're right. You're right. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't know that they got back.
Yeah.
Huh.
But
I think he should know. I think he should know.
Well, like I said, they can point the Pathfinder array at the asteroid that is out, so they could say, "Hey, we made it."
That would be something I would love to see.
And they have got the slipstream drive technology
Yeah.
intact, which is what the books pick up on afterwards, and they can travel further and faster, can't they?
Now the slipstream technology that was in the episode Timeless, where they crash onto the glacier planet, if I remember correctly. Something went wrong with went wrong, and that's okay. That's all right. I was just trying to remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, but as I said, they take all the technology off the ship. So who's to say that the slipstream drive will come back in some form?
Yeah, exactly. And there's
He
just
says
so
knowingly.
much. I can only imagine just like the amount of hours to go into a debriefing for everything that they've learned in the Delta Quadrant. It's just I wouldn't I wouldn't know where to begin with that. So I'm glad I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far with your season 8. I can't wait to get to the next couple episodes.
Okay, I hope so as well. Maybe we should wrap this up and you have a listen.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been 2 hours, and I really appreciate your time. And I know I'm sorry I've been kind of been busy with other projects, and of course the Orville After Show and the Better Call Saul after shows I've been doing. Okay. So I know, because I know you were one of the few people I've been talking to. And it's taken me weeks to set this up, but finally got the chance to do this. So I'm really grateful that you came on and we got to talk about this. This was I can talk about Star Trek all day long, and it's just such a pleasure to just remember and remember stuff and pick up and talk to people about it.
Okay, that's good then. I will say that the writing has taught me to be more patient, because I've got so much on my end where I'm dealing with my editor, who works at her pace to make sure the edit is really good. There's my way of writing, of course. Then there's, we didn't mention this, but I'm producing an animated episode of Caretaken, and I'm only producing 15 minutes of it, and it started in November, and I'm working and collaborating with various artists. I've got a VFX guy who's, if you go to the Instagram account, you can see some of the early work, but we're going to produce. I've got one more artist to give me back some assets, and then I can start animating in Final Cut Pro a 15-minute sort of preview and say show the first 2 scenes up to when Q says, "Hi, Captain," and then we're going to end it there. Okay. And it's in 4K. It's in 4K as well, 16:9. First time for Voyager. And really pick up visually where Endgame finished. Okay. We've got some ship exteriors. We've got intro, 4K intro. Somebody on the internet made one, so I've borrowed that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've got that on the side as well. So I've learned to be super patient, so it's fine.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to plug?
Just the Patreon. If people want to donate and help the art, I don't make any money from this. All the money that I receive, and I share it on my Patreon, like a tax assessment every year, and I say what's my income and what's my outgoings, and it can all be tracked. So I'm really honest. The money goes to the artists, goes to the editors, the materials that I buy, and then, like I said, the VFX guy. And when the project is finished, I'll tell people in advance so they can stop donating, and anything that's left over will go to charity. Because one, I'm satisfied with just the writing, and 2, I'm not allowed to make a profit anyway because it's not my copyright. This is not my franchise, so I would get sued. I think that's why there's no. That's why there's no GoFundMe. I'm not allowed to fundraise in that manner, so it's all through Patreon, and explicitly telling everybody that I'm not making a profit from this. I'm only profiting by learning to become a better writer and getting the story told that I wanted to tell.
You know? That sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right. Well, Jonathan, thanks so much for joining this Nerdporeal or Trekporeal stream, and really appreciate you sharing this project. And this is just awesome. Like just creating something is such a beautiful thing, and I want to encourage other people to, if they feel like they can create something, just do it. Just do it.
It does give you a perspective. It changes your brain into what is meaningful. I'm a lot less active on Twitter because I'm writing. Not because I'm writing as such. It's just because I'm creating something that is far more important than just replying to one person who argues with me. It just, it's like some people have a kid and they realize that, all this stuff is just secondary now because I'm looking after a life. And I'm not saying I've had a child, but I am looking after something, and it's made me.
It's your baby.
Yeah, it's my baby, figuratively speaking, and you just really dispense of other things that you thought were important that aren't important.
Yeah.
I'll assume I'll give you all the links and everything, so you can put it in the YouTube feed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't. Okay. Right. There's no need to name drop the Patreon then, as such. Okay.
So, all right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining. And
thank you for that.
And what do I always say? I always say, well, may the wings of Nerdporeals carry you to happiness.
Say that again.
I say, may the wings of Nerdporeals. That's the made up name I came up. You want to know how I came up with this name, Nerdporeal? It's basically the word nerd and the word corporeal. Why? Because I was thinking about Star Trek one day. I was thinking about incorporeal entities. I was like, well, you know what? Nerdporeal could work. And then I came up with a visual design where I just show symbols of all the franchises on just a being, the shape of a being. And yeah, that's it.
So no, it's original. I like it.
I'll show wait. I'll stop the camera. That's what it looks like. So you see Babylon 5 is where the dick is, and of course you see the Starship Enterprise is on the very top, and then you see the Enterprise E on the right foot, and then the Orville's right there too. It's basically everything that I like.
Okay.
So, but yeah. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share the video. I guess people might like Star Trek. It depends. And if you really if you really enjoyed the stream and want to, I have memberships. You can hit the join button underneath and become a member of the Nerdporeal Continuum. Yeah, I stole that from Q. Stole that from Star Trek, the Q Continuum. So the Nerdporeal Continuum. See, ooh. And that's pretty much it. My current project is I'm working on an Ocarina of Time retrospective, and it's going to be my biggest project yet. 3-hour retrospective split into 3 parts. So if you're into Zelda, if you're into 3D old N64 3D video games, then that is the retrospective. Then you'll be happy to see it. So but that's what I'm currently working on. So but everybody, other than that, take care and have a good night. And if you haven't seen the intro, I will show the intro again. Take care.
Bye-bye.